Let's start. Good afternoon. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I trust that you are all well. My name is Logan Rangasamy, and I am the Academic Director at the Wits Business School. It is truly my pleasure and honor to welcome you to this event, which we are co-hosting with Montclair State University in the US. Now, this is Montclair's 8th Women Entrepreneurship Week, which is a global celebration of women entrepreneurs. Every year in October, Montclair collaborates with universities around the world in hosting an event to feature some of the successful female alumni in the various universities. This year, Wits Business School is proud to be joining Montclair for the first time. The issue of inclusive growth has gained in prominence on the international policy agenda. It emphasizes the need to ensure that the marginalized are given due attention in order to achieve what could be termed meaningful growth and development. Now, it's widely recognized that women are amongst the most marginalized in almost all societies globally. However, having said that, the degree of marginalization of females in South Africa is more profound than elsewhere in the world. Let me give you some statistics. 51% of South Africa's population are female, with African females alone accounting for 41% of the population, total population. 42% of all our households in South Africa are headed by females, with the percentage being significantly higher for Black households. The unemployment, that's the official unemployment rate, is 30% among females and around 35% for African females. 8.1% of women in South Africa are graduates, which incidentally is very similar to the 8.2% for males. However, having said that, women on average earn somewhere between 50% to 70% of what their male counterparts do for similar jobs. So in essence, what these statistics, and I've just picked a few, what these statistics reveal are essentially two things. One is that women are marginalized in South Africa, as is the case elsewhere. However, the degree of discrimination is far worse if you are a Black female in South Africa. Now, this is a reality we have to confront if we are to achieve the desired social and economic imperatives that we so desperately need in South Africa. Initiatives directed at developing entrepreneurs is one way of addressing this challenge. This is the case given that entrepreneurs, probably more than any other profession, are the authors of their own destiny in the corporate world. So in this regard, we are very proud of the many amazing women entrepreneurs who have studied at the Wits Business School. So this seminar today is a great opportunity for us to pay tribute to some of these women. I'm hoping that this can become an annual event. Before we start with the panel discussion, we're going to have an introductory video from Montclair State University, which will give you a little bit more context about this event. I'm going to ask now Jayton to play the video, and thereafter I'm going to introduce the host for the event. Jayton, can you play the video, please?
Hi, my name is Liz Rich, and I am the Acting Director of the Feliciano Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Montclair State University. And welcome to Women Entrepreneurship Week 2021. Believe it or not, the first Women Entrepreneurship Week events took place back in 2014 when just 4 New Jersey universities made that commitment to shine a light on female entrepreneurs for that special week in October. And since then, this celebration has completely transformed into a global movement. This is our biggest Women Entrepreneurship Week event yet. We have over 250 colleges and universities around the globe, like Wits Business School, who this year are celebrating women entrepreneurs through a host of exciting events, panels, and workshops, both online or in person. So we want to thank you for continuing to celebrate with us and for joining our global commitment to holding space for and creating community around the amazing achievements and inspirational stories of women entrepreneurs, not just this week, but throughout the year, in your communities and around the globe. Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome.
Okay, before we get started, I just want to give you some house rules. Ensure that your microphone is muted. Also, please switch off your video. This will assist with any bandwidth or connectivity issues. Then also, if you've got any question, please post these in the chat box, and the host will relay this to the panelists. And in the event that you miss anything, I just want to remind you that this event is being live streamed and recorded. So let me introduce the host for this event. Dr. Jabulile Msimango-Galawe is our host for this afternoon, and she will introduce our speakers just now. Dr. Jabu is a senior lecturer in entrepreneurship at the Wits Business School and the director of our Masters of Management in Business and Executive Coaching. She is also a successful entrepreneur in her own right and is regularly called upon to coach entrepreneurs. Jabu is one of our budding young academics, and we are very blessed to have her as part of the WBS academic team. Jabu, I'm now going to hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for that. Welcome to everybody. As Prof has said, I'm an entrepreneur myself. So more than being a senior lecturer at the business school, outside of that, I do practice as an entrepreneur. So I'll be your host today. So I'll be facilitating this session, and I'm very excited. We've got amazing women that we'll be having a conversation with here. And I'm hoping that by the end of this session, you will be inspired, and you will go out also to make sure that you shine your light wherever you are. So to get our session started, I will introduce, we've got three amazing women that will be our panelists today. And to get started, I will introduce them. Just a brief, they've got very long CVs. I won't try to cover everything, but I'll give you just a sense of, as entrepreneurs, where they are, where they've been. And then when they do their opening speeches, then they can tell you a little bit more about what they get up to and what their businesses are all about. So our first panelist that we've got Melina Lewis. She's a marketing and communications specialist, and she's also a writer. She's an author as well. So she's authored about 3 books. And she's also a storyteller, so we'll hear when she introduces herself, she can get into the mode of the storytelling and tell us a bit about her business. So she's been in the space for a communication space for a very long time. So she's got over 20 years of experience in there, and she has also worked in the NGO space. And we'll hear more about that later. And then we also have Mantombazane Xulu. She's in the beauty industry. So she's a beauty brand owner and cosmetic scientist. She calls herself an analyst, a scientist, an entrepreneur. She runs her own business as well. So, and she's been in the space for a long time. And she's also a product manager within the cosmetics. She's been a product manager within the cosmetics industry, and the founder of Shuma True Therapy, a green beauty brand, which is her current business. And she's also going to tell us a bit more about that and the experience that she got when she was consulting within the FMCG space, and how she got to then start Shuma True Therapy there. And then our last panelist is Dr. Patience Mpofu. She's been in the mining space for a very, very long time, and she's running her own business as well. She's a founder of Peak Performance with Patience, which is linked to her name. She's a multi-award winner as one of the influential African women leaders in mining in Africa. And she's also a former vice president of an Australian listed mining company. She's a global mining sustainability thought leadership, and she's an executive leadership coach as well. She's one of the women who really passionate about STEMs. She advocates a lot of STEMs in terms of getting young people in that space. And she's really enjoying that. So all our panelists are our alumni, so they've been at Wits, they studied with us, and we'll get to hear as well as to how getting education also has influenced them to become the entrepreneurs that they are today. So without wasting time, we will start with Melina. Melina, if you can switch on your video, and then you can introduce yourself for about 5 minutes. Tell us a bit about your journey. Where have you been? How did you get to this far? Just for 5 minutes. I'll switch off my video. When you see my video on, you know your 5 minutes is over. Over to you, Melina.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I will, as you say, as a storyteller, I will try and keep my story short and concise. I've had an interesting journey in terms of my career, if you want to put it that way. I started off as a scientist at Wits, and then ended up, in like doing research at Wits Medical School. And one of my kind of sliding door moments, as I like to say, when life suddenly shifts, was going to Wits Business School, actually. And it was as if this amazing cloud like moved out of the way, and I was like, wow, look at what exists out there. Look at what the business world, where you could fit in, what you could do. And so doing my PDM at Wits Business School made me think that I really could do anything, which was great. And a little bit, I was quite young. So I think, I was very starry-eyed for that. But that was a massive shift for me. And I really wanted to then move from academia into business. And that kind of catapulted the journey, and I became a medical rep. And then from there, I moved into advertising, and still within the medical field, but in the advertising space, which kind of merged creative and as well as all the science. And that was fantastic. It was a lovely start. And I worked for a very smart woman called Mandy Fine, and I was lucky enough to learn from her. And so from there, it kind of just, rolled on, and I got involved in NGO work through her company. And I decided I wanted to kind of help NGOs with communication. And that's where the working with the NGOs came in. And I did that for a while. And then I became a mum. And that was another sliding door moment. I don't know if there was like sliding doors possibly falling off the hinges at that point, but it was also one of those big shifts and changes that one has, and to kind of reassess yourself and what you want from your life. And so then my shift changes, and I moved more into, once again, communication, and slowly started to build up a consultancy that was very much around working with businesses in terms of their strategic marketing and communication. And I've worked with all sorts of businesses, kind of whether within the business, on the outside, just doing elements of communication, PR ads, whatever, or doing kind of acting as an outsourced marketing arm. So it's been really exciting. And I've been in tech companies. I'm now kind of in a biotech space, and then also doing a lot of medical communication work as well. So my work is quite varied, and it gives me a lot of excitement. I don't do well with kind of, same thing every day. I'd make a terrible accountant. So basically that has kind of been the journey. And then along the way also realizing that I want to write a book and doing that in my spare time and creating a whole other business around books. I decided to self-publish my work. I've got 2 adult books, working on a 3rd, and then I've got 3 children's books. And, so learning how to take on this industry that I've never been involved in was really exciting. And the power of platforms such as Amazon, and how does one get a book into a bookstore, everything about it has been very exciting, and that's kind of developed into its own business. I also ran a podcast around entrepreneurs for a time, which was inspired from COVID. And I also learned then how to podcast. So I'm quite light on my feet, which is quite exciting. And it allows me to do a lot of things. It can get quite chaotic at times, but overall it's, I really enjoy like what I do. And yeah, I think Wits Business School definitely was kind of the kick that sent it all kind of going forward. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you for that a lovely intro. We'll move to Ntombi. Are you ready? Did we lose her? Mantombazane?
Didn't lose me. I'm here. You've stopped video from your side. So you've stopped video sharing from your side.
Okay, it's probably my network because my video is on this side. So I'm not sure. Let me just switch off and see.
Okay, can you just check because it says host has stopped the video. Okay, there we are.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect. Thank you, Dr. J. So I'm going to try and be very brief with my background. I studied science, majored in chemistry and anatomy because I wanted to be a forensic analyst. But that dream quickly went up in smoke because I couldn't find a job as a forensic analyst. For some reason, there were no jobs for forensic scientists in the country. So I decided to go back to school, and I went to the business school and I studied business. And that landed me in the financial services sector when I graduated. And that's where I worked for a couple of years until I decided that I wanted a career change. And that's really what opened the door to my journey into cosmetics. I began in 2017, and it really started from a personal need that I have. I have very dry and very sensitive skin. And a lot of the products that I was using over the years would either give me breakouts or they would cause my skin to tear or to peel. And so I started out on this journey of using unrefined butters to create my own product because I needed a product that was going to moisturize my skin, keep it hydrated, but also not irritated. And the reason for the irritation is because a lot of the products that we find on the market, both skin and hair care products, actually contain chemicals that increase your sensitivity, your sensitivity of your skin. And these have been proven to result in a lot of issues such as contact dermatitis, inflammatory skin disorders, as well as increased allergies. And essentially this birthed the business, this birthed the company, which has a very simple philosophy that is to create natural and simple products that actually work using pure oils, natural unrefined butters as a base. Products that are formulated without any sulfates and without any synthetic chemicals, so no synthetic fragrances and no colorants. When I went to the business school, coming from a science background, it was actually an eye-opener for me. And I remember how overwhelming it was for the first quarter because there was just so much going on. There was so much to learn, but it has actually gotten me to where I am today. That was the beginning of my journey, even though I didn't know it back then. But those were the foundations that were laid to get me to where I am today. And you know, with my company, the move from just having simple butters has gone on to a purpose that is so much more than just about me, so much more than just about the average person with skin issues. And our mission is to educate, to inspire, and to empower. We use our blog to educate our customers and consumers in general. We inspire through the simple products that we create that are clean and created with natural raw materials. And we empower by providing a service to other business owners that do not have the right expertise or knowledge to grow their businesses with well-formulated bulk products as well as consulting services. My journey, to say the least, has not been the easiest. I'd be lying if I said that it was. It's actually been very difficult. It's come with a lot of challenges, mostly because I'm doing it all on my own, but also because I funded my business purely from my savings. And there've been times where I wanted to give up, but what keeps me going is the love for what I do. I really love what I do. I enjoy formulating, I enjoy creating, and holding a finished product at the end of it all is just something that brings so much peace and so much excitement. And that is what keeps me going. And that's me.
Okay, thank you, Mantombazane. So we'll go to Dr. Patience, Dr. Mpofu.
Thank you, Dr. J. I am excited to be here. I've got a background in chemistry, interesting enough. So I've done some formulation like Mantombazane. And then I spent more than 25 years in the mining industry. So I studied chemistry and I got a scholarship to study in Australia to do a PhD. So my PhD was really to solve sustainability problems, which is essentially water minimization in the mining industry. How much water can you actually recirculate back into the process plant? For some of you who know process operations in mining, they use a lot of water. I came back in South Africa and I worked for Anglo American. I stayed there for almost about 10 years. During those 10 years, I navigated the tough industry. It's not for the faint-hearted, but it is very rewarding because you learn quite a lot. I traveled across different continents, including South America, where I could not even speak Spanish. But I managed to go there and do some work. And I remember one day, and I couldn't even fit some of the clothing, safety clothing for women. It's quite bizarre when you work in the mining industry and it's supposed to have clothing for women. And I know now things have actually changed. But during those days, it was very difficult. And it was also not unusual to find yourself as the only woman, and worse of a Black woman in the industry, in a room full of white males. It always used to make me wonder, am I in the wrong field? But funny enough, I actually stayed more than 10 years, more than 25 years. So after Anglo American, in the process operations, I moved across the organization in strategy, in business development, in commercial, project valuation, and many other different roles, getting promoted. But it was not an easy journey. As you can imagine, a very male-dominated work environment, but it was very fulfilling. I learned quite a lot. I learned to be stronger. I learned to be confident. I've got so many lessons that I can share with so many women. Then I moved to Lonmin as a senior manager business development. As most of you know, Lonmin had Marikana in 2012. It was a turning point for the mining industry. It was also a turning point for myself because I just moved 3 months into the role when Marikana happened. It was tough because my role was essentially to do mergers and acquisitions, which was to empower the communities, do some deals, to empower the communities, to empower the employees. Nonetheless, I stayed on and I managed to do those deals with a team, obviously, of many people. I stayed there for about 3.5 years. I then went to INSEAD. And when I was at INSEAD, I got a job offer to join South 32, an Australian mining company. I then left Lonmin, and then I joined South 32. Within 8 months, I was promoted as Vice President Corporate Affairs. It was a new role for me. But as a leader, you would know that you don't do the work yourself. You get the teams and inspire them to do the work. And I worked there for almost about 3 years. And one day, we were in Lesotho with my family, and my niece asked me, "Auntie, why are you working in the mining industry? You look tired," because I couldn't join them to do some nice activities. In my entire family, they were interested to know why. Why did I join the mining industry? Why did I stay there for 25 years? So the journey of sharing my story started during that holiday, and I shared my story with my family. They had no idea some of the challenges that I faced, but also most importantly, they had no idea how I navigated to succeed to C-suite level. When I finished my story, interestingly, my niece was so interested in fashion and she wanted to study fashion and be a model. She said to me, "Auntie, you've inspired me. I think I want to do STEM." And now she's actually studying STEM-related subjects. And then I thought to myself, if I can inspire a young girl, and she was 14 that time, imagine how many more girls or women I could inspire with my story. So that journey of sharing my story started on that day. It so happened that my role became redundant at South 32. And I thought, let me turn lemon into lemonade. Let me share my story. Let me write a book. And I was lucky that I got accepted for the International Women Forum Fellows Program. It allowed me then to do a legacy project. And that legacy project was my book. It had 3 aspects to it. The first was a survey where I wanted to understand the challenges that most women face in STEM-related subjects. The second part was I interviewed very global women who are in STEM, who have broken the glass ceiling, to understand exactly how they've actually done it. I'm a researcher, so I love doing research. And it was really to understand what does it really take to succeed? Because I just didn't want it to be just my story. And interestingly, the challenges that we face as women are very similar. That's what came out of this. Sharing my story then became my why, because I wanted to help women who struggle to navigate the male-dominated work environment, particularly STEM. But I also wanted to inspire young girls, because think about now, the digital economy, artificial intelligence, space mining. Where are the women? We need more girls in STEM. And that's why I then started Peak Performance with Patients. And that's my coaching organization. I help women to navigate the tough mining industry, but more importantly, STEM-related professions. For them to succeed, we need more girls. We need more women to stay in the industries that are tough, but it's up to us as leaders to really help them to succeed, because otherwise it's going to take even longer than 136 years to close the gender gap. So that's my business. I help women And my business is going to be moving and creating more products for young girls, from toys, like the mine of the future for girls, so that they can start visualizing how the mine of the future is going to look like with more technology. So all these are still ideas which are in the pipeline, because I just recently published my book, which is a #1 bestseller on Amazon in 4 categories. And my academy is going to be launching before year end, where I want to scale it, because you can imagine coaching, you can only do so much, but when you do an academy, it's easier for people to do online, to share knowledge, particularly in the mining industry, and also to help them with navigating the tough male-dominated workplace. My other business is Inside Mining Experts, a platform that connects leaders, experts with the mining industry to solve some sustainability issues. That's still in the pipeline, it's still being developed, but that's my passion, looking at sustainability and also closing the gender gap. That's my story. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and thank you for the inspiring stories and the journeys that you guys have taken. It's really amazing to hear that the common thread is that it's not easy, but it's fulfilling because of the passion. You still want to do it, even if it's not easy. So I will invite all my panelists, if we can. Let's see if the bandwidth will hold. If you can be all back on the with your videos, so that we can start the conversation. I think it will flow better when you all on, so I can see easily who wants to answer which question at what time. So we've heard where you all started. You running your own businesses, and this is what this conversation is about: inspiring other women who are either wanting to start their own businesses, or who are already in there, and some feel this journey is tough, it's difficult. Should I go back, look for a job? Should I stay on? If I stay on, I feel I don't have the tools and the strength to continue anymore. But one of the things that I got from your stories is that you are still continuing, irrespective of how tough or whatever the challenges are, whether being in a male-dominated space, whether moving from what you studied to start something new, different from what you are doing, but you are still going on. My first question to you is, what has been the biggest challenge and how did you overcome it? So if I see your mic on, then I know you want to go first. What has been the biggest challenge? The one that you thought you are not going to be able to overcome it, but you did. And how did you overcome it? Okay, Dr. Patience.
I'll go first. So when I started my business, so as I mentioned that it was 2 businesses. The mining industry, it's a long lead industry, and a lot of people, they want to get into the industry because the returns are really good. But the reality of the situation is capital. Capital is an issue. So if you don't have enough capital and you're not prepared that it's going to take longer to generate your cash flows, then it's a difficult one. That's the part that I actually started with. I started with the mining one because I was on sabbatical, and I thought, let me do with the mining one. I had a lot of assets that I was mandated to sell. It was difficult because then you're selling to people who are also looking for funding, and there's no funding. And unfortunately, COVID also happened, which made it even worse. I had to pivot. I was going to do my legacy project. I'd already started writing my book, but I had to now focus more on what I had more control over. Because if I didn't do that, it was easy to really fall over. So that's one, capital. Second one is relationships. You've got to know who you partner with. It's important. I'll just leave it at that. You've got to know who you partner with. It's very critical. Third parties, big businesses, need to support small businesses. What I actually found is that relationships matter in corporate, but they matter even more when you're an entrepreneur, particularly when you're dealing with big businesses. And I think if we can get more businesses to support small businesses without necessarily talking about relationships and looking at just the expertise that somebody's bringing, I think we are going to be really getting a lot of entrepreneurs and improving the unemployment rate that we have in South Africa. So those are the major ones for myself, those three.
Okay, thank you for that, Dr. Patience. So you say the capital was the biggest issue. You had to look at how you're doing your business, how you can pivot, and also making sure that you understand what is within your control and what is not within your control, and navigating around those things and building the relationships has helped you so far to deal, especially with the COVID challenges that we all faced with. When you were speaking, Mantombazane, you also mentioned the issue of capital, that when you started your business, you were using your savings a lot. Do you want to maybe talk to that in terms of the challenges in there and how you navigated that?
No, definitely. I mean, I completely agree with Patience when it comes to capital. It's very important. And when you're starting a business, it's basically the most important thing. You know, you need capital, whichever business it is that you're starting. And what I noticed, what I experienced was that when it comes to funding, there's a lack of support for SMMEs, and there's definitely no support in the informal sector, for one. And there's not much emphasis that is placed on R&D investments, which in essence actually drive economic growth and job creation. If you look at the Western world or in more developed countries, you'll realize that it's something that they do really well. They incentivize and they support companies that are taking part or in innovative projects, for example, that will develop and introduce new products into the sectors or into industries. And me personally, I feel that the plans and the policies that have been created in our country have failed to address this. And they have failed to take into consideration that there isn't just a formal sector, there's also an informal sector, which probably requires more attention, if one were to say. I've also realized that there's a lot of provincial and regional offices. So if you look at the Department of Small Business Development, for example, they're in Pretoria, and the two agencies that they use, they're in Pretoria. So for somebody that is coming from Soweto, that is coming from the East Rand, you have to make your way, find your way, and get to Pretoria to get the most basic of information, to get application forms, which you then have to leave, fill in, add all the 1,500 requirements that come with that. And in all honesty, there's just a high cost associated with searching for support services. It can be very cumbersome, and the administrative requirements are also just so long and so unattractive. And I think that that's the reason why so many people just drop the process and decide to do it on their own. That's the reason why I decided I'm just going to use my own money, because it takes so much effort, so much time, and so much energy that it's almost draining. And it could easily just deter you from what it is that you're trying to do, from the vision that you have, because now you're focused on this funding and this capital that you need to start your business. But fortunately for me, I had those savings. I could do that. but that's really not the case for a lot of people.
Okay. I like that you put your mind on it. You wanted to do it. And with all the things that you are mentioning, you still made it happen. You still found a way to make it happen. And that's what we call entrepreneurship, because the truth of the matter is that you are not going to find everybody queuing to support you. And I always ask the question to say, then if nobody helps you, is being an entrepreneur ends there because nobody supports you. If all the government criteria that are there don't suit you, are you going to stop then being an entrepreneur? And that's where you find it very difficult, and where you find some people say, no, I'm staying out of it. And then now that's where the grit, the commitment, the resilience come in. To find ways to say, we've got all these challenges that we are all aware of, but I want to do this and I'm going to do it. And the next question becomes how, and then you find that. Melina, for you play in different industries. You are not focused on just one industry, and probably that comes with its own things. Share with us what has been your biggest challenge there.
Yeah, that is why I do it. One of my biggest challenges was around cash flow. And so not so much to start up a business, because I sell hours in my line of work as a consultant. So I luckily did not need huge capex to start up, kind of moving out of a job role into an entrepreneurial role. But what I found was I had one or two big clients, and then the big one, I lost them. And I was now like, I could, that where you didn't see it coming. And I realized that, okay, that's a big problem, to just have your finger in one pie and expect that pie to go on and on and on forever. And it was a big, big lesson for me. And so my strategy has always been around then, okay, that's cool. It's still lovely to have big clients, but then, what else are we doing and keeping hot on the, and it's, I suppose in all businesses, one is always looking for new work and putting feelers out for that. And if there are other opportunities, how could that look? And then, other businesses, or kind of working with people collaboratively. And what I also really believe in is a side hustle. And sometimes a side hustle can actually really turn into your new business. You often hear of people who do smaller businesses on the side. It doesn't have to just be baking cupcakes. You can slowly start developing your business, slowly on the side, while you have a little bit of security in some other kind of job. So I really do believe in that as well. So yeah, cash, and I learned it at Wits Business School. Cash flow is king. And I will never forget that statement. I sat in that lecture and I was like, what did they mean? I was still working in the Department of Surgery at the time. So I had no clue. I was, I can't believe that actually we're all scientists. I think it's amazing that all three of us were not scientists who then went to Wits Business School. Oops on the science. But I love that you don't have a background in finance, and you now must really figure this out. And and that's my big learning, and my challenge is always to have that pot sort of boiling with some cash in it, because you just never know what's going to happen, like COVID.
Yeah, cash flow. Yeah, the lecturers always say the cash flow. And when you are not in it, you don't hear them. You hear the statement, but you don't hear it. And then you start running the business, and then month end comes, especially if you've got employees, you've got people to pay. You've got all these big projects, but there's no money to pay anybody. And then you start, what did the lecturer say? Cash flow is key. and then it comes back. It's very interesting that you noted the fact that all the panelists are scientists. I did BSc myself, but when I did my PhD, I moved to entrepreneurship because I was already practicing as an entrepreneur, and then the heat of failure made me to go and now study more and do the PhD. But the thing that you're mentioning that I think is key to note for everybody is that you can have a master's, you can have a PhD, but if it is science, it tells nothing about the business. And sometimes we can think those degrees will make us run better businesses. And also there's something that one of my colleagues, Dr. Mark Edward, like saying that all other fields you study to become. So you study medicine, you become a doctor. You study whatever you study, you become. But the funny thing with entrepreneurship, you study entrepreneurship, you don't become an entrepreneur, but you run a business, you become entrepreneurial, you do it, then you become. And that's where then we've got this failure rate, because you don't study for it, you do it, and then that's where your school is. You do, you fail, you do, you fail, and then you continue. And one of the things that I'm hoping that can come out of here is the lessons. So you've had these challenges that you faced, you overcame them. Obviously, that's our university. The Entrepreneurs University is in the doing. You have learned something. What are those lessons that you have learned that you think are key that you would like to share, especially those that might not be across, that you find to be more unique for women? We'll go back to start with you, Dr. Patience. So you started the cycle already.
Well, you know, for me, the biggest challenge was mindset. And I say mindset because you spend a lot of years in corporate. There is a structure, there are processes. Somebody invested over years to have that structure, the processes, the systems, the people, everything is functioning quite nicely. And you come in, you know what you're supposed to do, and you do what you have to do, and you lead a team. As an entrepreneur, you need to shift that mindset, because the patterns of corporate, you carry them into entrepreneurship. That's the reason why a lot of entrepreneurs fail, apart from cash flow, but it's because of the mindset. The mindset, you need a very strong resilience, extremely strong resilience. We talk about resilience in workplaces, but I think as an entrepreneur, you need a strong resilience as an entrepreneur. So shift your mindset from being this person specialist to here, generalist. You've got to run accounting, you've got to do this, you've got to lead a team. So that's one. Number two, diversifying your risk. I think Melina mentioned that where you start a business with those, become a gapologist. I remember my entrepreneur lecturer, because I actually won the best entrepreneur student as an MBA student, the Standard Bank Prize. And one of the things that he said was, you need to be a gapologist. A gapologist is somebody who's always looking for gaps in the market, just solving a problem. And I know some of the cash flow for me came from certain things that were not necessarily like my direct line of what I wanted to do. Because you need to look at the gap in the market, but also think about the technology right now. There are more opportunities, technology. What I'm now doing, which is the academy, in where, you know, the people will be doing the masterclass, it will be online. Initially, I wasn't thinking that way. It was just the coaching. Then eventually, as I refine my business model, I realized this is where the gap is. So those are some of the lessons. And of course, cash is king. That I cannot emphasize more. Cash flow to debt. We've seen big companies. I was running a commercial for the rest of Africa for this mining company. And if you don't have any cash, you're just dead. You are just literally dead. It's your lifeblood. So you really need to make sure cash flow is there as a business. So those are the things that I would say the major lessons.
Thank you for that. I thank you and for emphasizing the cash flow issue. I'm hoping that our participants or our attendants here can hear it, unlike myself, Melina, and others who, when we were in class and you hear somebody say that we didn't get it. And the emphasis then becomes important, that you can make all the profits, but if you don't have the money to pay for tomorrow, you might be dead before you even know it. And thanks for that. Yes, Mantombazane? Your biggest lessons so far?
Yeah, I think for me, it's more on the personal lessons that I have learned. And the first one is to learn to take time out. When I started, for the longest time, I used to work so much that when I would work through the night, and when people are waking up in the morning, I'm going to sleep. And I have learned that it's very important to take time out for obvious reasons, mental health for one. And the second lesson is to learn to make decisions quickly, as opposed to not making any decisions at all. Because what I have learned is that the longer you take or the longer you wait to make a decision, you miss out on opportunities. So as an entrepreneur, you definitely need to learn to make decisions quickly. And the third lesson, and for me, the most important lesson, is stop selling myself short. You know, I took a very long time for me to launch because I was constantly worried about what could go wrong before it could go wrong. And I wanted everything to be perfect. But it's never going to be perfect. It's a work in progress. The landscape is constantly changing, and that's something that you need to keep at the back of your mind. So stop selling yourself short and worrying about the things that could go wrong. It's very important to go out there. If you have an idea, just start. Don't wait, just start. And those were, for me, the 3 top lessons that I've learned on my journey thus far.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, the issue of mental health and taking care of ourselves these days is becoming a serious topic that I think a lot of us, especially entrepreneurs, have neglected in a long time, because we are always chasing the next deal and the next one and the next one. And when you think of resting, you look at your bank balance and then you chase the next one and the next one. But at the end of the day, your body forces you, whether your bank balance is negative, your body forces you, it just shuts down. And that's when you realize that it's very important. And thank you for sharing that. And that takes us to, before we get to you, Melina, it takes us to the question. I don't know whether you've been looking at the questions. And to those who are listening, please, if you've got a question, just put it on there, and then we will read it and then direct it to, if you want a specific panelist to respond, you can put the name there, and then we'll direct the question. So you can send your questions and we'll go through them. So there's one question that is directed to you, Melina. How do you manage your time with demands of a job, side hustle, and family responsibilities? You mentioned earlier that you do multiple things. You side hustling, you've got all these things that you're doing. And Mantombazane brings something that is important, that you need to take time for yourself to recharge and get ready again. And that's the question. So how do you make sure you can still take care of yourself, you can still run all your different businesses and still stay sane?
Maybe we should drop sanity out of this. I think as entrepreneurial women, I think sanity it's overrated. So I think you need a level of insanity in order to do some of the things you do. So I'm just going to bang that lady drum and say, as women, we can multitask. Men just can't, you know. I like my husband, if he's doing one thing and I speak to him, he just can't, or maybe it's just the sound of my voice. But, you know, I think just women are just better better at multitasking. So that would be, I'm just going to put it down to genetics. But as a, in terms of as a whole, how one does it, not as fast as I would like. So I think, I'm going to tie it into kind of your earlier question around lessons. And ever since I was a kid, my mother used to say to me, you burn the candle at both ends. And it just used to make me work harder when she said that. So I think the issue is that planning is certainly an element that comes into it. And then something I'm very bad at, but being realistic around time. So you can totally do all the things you want to do, but you do need to understand that they will take a bit more time. So I'm not a full-time writer. I cannot write a book in a month like I see Amazon writers doing on Amazon. It's not going to happen for me because it's not that. So maybe it'll take me a year or two to write a book, but I'm still going to write that book, and I'm not dead yet. So I'm just going to keep going until I do. So I try and approach a lot of things like writing. So, there's that statement that someone said, how do you eat an elephant? And it's one bite at a time. So the thing is about putting pen to paper every day, even if you write a paragraph or just a page, you're putting that. And the same can be done for your business. You sit down with a list. Okay, I'm going to do a social media post. I'm going to do a newsletter. Sorry, I'm talking all obviously marketing stuff, or I'm going to do my tax. I'm going to do all these things that one has to do in one's business, and you slowly work through those things. Sure, clients jump in, things go wrong, children. I joke a lot about my mobile office, which is my car. I have a laptop that goes basically everywhere with me. Luckily not the bathroom, but it's basically, I have made myself very mobile. I can work from bed to in the car. So then my phone has the right apps that I can be on the go and doing things. But, as Mantombazane said, you need to pull the plug every now and then, otherwise you will drive yourself nuts. So you do have to try and create your boundaries. But I think I don't like to put limits on people. I think people sometimes put too many limits on themselves, and I want to give them a kick in the pants and go, come on, you can do more, you can be more, you can achieve a lot, because I really do believe people have so many great qualities and they can do so much. But at the same time, we're not to push too hard. It's a fine line. It's very tricky. I suppose if you hate what you do, you're never gonna go anywhere with it, so yeah, I hope I've answered the question.
Yes, you have. So it's I don't know whether the other panelist wants to add to that question. You have your family, you've got your business, you've got sometimes multiple businesses. How do you make sure that you give each of them a fair amount of time, that when you go sleep at the end of the day, you feel that I've done what I needed to do? If you ever feel that I've done it.
One of the
yes, Dr. Patience.
One of the things that I learned quickly, delegation. Because when you actually start having more work, it's super important to start delegating, because you can't be doing every single thing, and that's where you start getting a burnout. I picked it when I was writing my book. I had to get a team to help me, even though cash was really low, but I needed to get a team to help me, because that's where you start getting a burnout. That's when you start getting fatigue. And especially with the COVID, I mean, with so many deaths and families, you really need to take care of yourself. But it's so important to start delegating. At what point you start balancing to say, yes, I want to keep the cash, preserve the cash. At what point do I start really letting go and putting in the cash that comes in to get somebody to do the work? Because it's not worth your health. It's not worth, because your health is your new wealth. If you're gonna, not look after yourself, then you're gonna spend more money now on your health. I saw that with myself when I was really getting a burnout and I was working so hard trying to preserve the cash. So really delegating and getting, a bigger team to really help you, I think, really critical.
No, thank you for that. It's interesting that we are bringing up that issue of delegation. I'm a coach, and one of the things that I find that comes up a lot in coaching sessions is people challenge of delegating. The common challenge that people who end up getting burnt out is that they never believe that anybody else will do it right. So they want to do it all by themselves. I used to struggle a lot with that. I'm doing much better than where I used to be. And the interesting thing is that the more you let go, the more you become confident that, oh, other people can also do what I want the way I want it. It's just for me to put measures and systems in place to make sure that I guide them properly for them to do it the way I want it. And for small businesses, when we are starting, most of the time is okay, because it's not a lot when you're starting to do everything yourself. You don't even have the money at that time. But as you say, as the business grows, you've got more stuff to do. And when you've got more stuff to do, you still want to do all of it, and then you can't cope. I made an example the other day that if you go to a shop, you buy a desk, and then they say at the shop, we will charge you 200 Rand to assemble the desk for you. And let's say, Dr. Patience, you're already a doctor, your rate an hour is 2,000 Rand. You have never assembled a desk, it probably will take you the whole day figuring it out. Do you pay the 200 Rand, or you spend the whole day at your rate of 2,000 Rand an hour figuring out how to assemble the desk? At the end of the day, you are dead tired. You can't go back to do what you need to do. And those are the kind of thinking that we need to start orientating ourselves around to say, what's my worth? Is it worth it? And that's where the burnout come in, because you're busy doing 100 Rand job when you are worth 2,000 Rand, and then you get burned out. You can't get more clients for the 2,000 Rand because you are busy with the other thing. So I find it very interesting that you raised that, because we don't even reason it. We just go, we're busy, we're busy, we're busy. We never sit down and rank the things we need to do, that this I can pay somebody less money, they do it more often, they will do it quicker than me, and I win. And then I can use my time for this task because this is my specialty. I can't give it to somebody else. And those are the things, especially us as women, we want to be super everything. You've got kids, you've got a husband, you've got your job, you've got the side hustle, and you want to do all of that. You don't even pay somebody to help you clean the house. You want to clean the house, you want to paint the walls, you want to do everything. And then when at the end of the day, then now your health suffers, you don't realize that it's like Melina mentioned earlier, the planning and knowing what you can take within a day becomes important. So that's very important. And thanks for mentioning that. I see our attendees are very quiet. Yeah? I see Sumaya says, I'm so inspired by all your testimonies. Thank you for empowering the women of SA. And we've got another message from Ginilo. Say, I like what Tombi said, the importance of moving with the idea. The longer you wait to check it, anything can go wrong. Pravashni says, thank you, Dr. J. That is such an awesome analogy and very true. Send us questions. We want to answer questions. We're waiting for your questions, so you can start sending them. We're hoping to wrap up at 12:30. So normally attendees have got this tendency that 5 minutes before you close, then the questions start coming in, and then we are not able to answer all of them. So start sending the questions now, so that we've got enough time to respond to those questions. And then there's one that just came in for Mantombazane. I recently started making my own body butter using raw ingredients, and I've enjoyed the results. I have tried several iterations of which oils to use and have produced some really messy batches. A thought crossed my mind to make this a side hustle, but just the level of effort required for my own batch is exhausting. How many experiments did you do to eventually launch your products?
A lot. So it's called product development. It's a process. It doesn't have the right consistency, the right thickness. It takes a while, and it also depends on the quality of the ingredients that you're using. So it's great that you're using your butters and your oils, but just take into consideration as well if you're adding emulsifiers, the types of emulsifiers that you're adding, because that will stabilize your product a little better. So just go on the internet, start looking up emulsifiers. That will help you a lot. I hope that answers your question, but it will help you a lot. If you're struggling with your batch, then it just means that your concentrations aren't balancing. So get an emulsifier. Okay,
great. Thanks for that. I hope it helps you, Ru. And soon we're going to start seeing your products. We're going to be buying very, very soon. Mosima said, can the panelists share how is profit making going? Are you making profit, panelists, or you are just selling? Melina, I see you laughing the loudest there. Do you want to start? Maybe to just add, maybe on to kind of rephrase that question, is to say, because most of us, we start businesses based either on our expertise or our qualifications, technical skills, our passion. Where does profit start coming in, and when do you know that what you're doing is not going to make you the profit? So just to add on that question, to also give some kind of thought around that, to say, do I run for 10 years without profit? I'm passionate about it. Do I run for 2 years? Do I run for 1 month? Is it realistic? Am I going to start seeing the profit in 1 month, in 2 weeks? Over to you, Melina.
Yeah, profit. So I feel like, so selling hours, which I had a debate with my husband. I said, I don't know if that's entrepreneurial. And he was like, yeah, no. So perhaps that is, we'll put that in, like, it's almost like a job in the sense that, so my marketing business is, hours. And although I work in virtual teams, in the sense that I work with other specialized people, designers, writers, etc., PR agents, whatever it is, and we kind of work in parallel, we don't work within a business structure. We all just kind of come in to solve a solution for a client. So that business that sells hours is profitable, yes, but you only have so many hours in a day. And unless you are bringing someone in who is doing things for you at a lower rate, as we were talking about, and then you're making a profit on them, or you're expanding your team, or you're working on retainers, it's quite tricky to make immense profit, or unless you are at a big rate, if you're at 2,000 Rand an hour. But rate is often determined within the industry. So there's a lot of caveats around that. But so that kind of are the limitations within kind of selling time or services. When it comes to product, and I'll talk about my book business, that is, I almost want to go highly unprofitable, in the sense that one is, if you self-publishing, and you're wanting actual books on shelf, one is once again producing a product. So you need to have money in order to then go to the printer, get all of these items created, and then go to distributors in order to put them on shelves, etc. So like very many other industries where it's product based. And that is very slow. You have laid out thousands and thousands of brands, and the return is slow. And books sit on shelves for months on end. Also within the book business industry, you only get your money 3 months later. So, if you are doing it yourself as a business versus a publishing house, that's a completely different business model. That's where you paid as a writer. It's harder to make money. And so that's why I do them in parallel. I often describe the book business as not so much as a hobby, but something I love to do. Like if I was a cyclist and then I had a very expensive cycling habit, that would be more my book business. However, it has the potential to change over time. So talking around, when do I give up, or kind of throw the baby out? I don't know. I said 5 years, but writing is a passion, creating the stories, figuring out stuff in my head through my stories is part of netball, and is part of my journey. So I don't know when one actually throws it out. Often it just comes down to the money. But while I've got the capacity and the love and the passion to do it, I will just continue to do it, I think, from my side.
Okay, Dr. Patience, you want to come in there on the profit side?
Well, the profit, that's why you have to be in a business, but it depends on the business model, right? Like with me, the mining, it's a sunk cost. The mining business that I have, it's a sunk cost. And I think Melanie mentioned in terms of decision, where you have to make a decision and make a call and say, you know what, I have to stop this, because I needed to have deep pockets and I had retrenchment money, which I kept on putting sustaining myself. But it was taking longer to close those deals. And I had to say, you know what, let me get this fine. Let me focus on this. So my other business, to Melanie's side's point, in terms of a book, it takes time. It's also money that you put in and you only get it later. But it also depends on the business model that you're looking at in terms of your book. Making money out of a book, not very profitable. The margins are pretty low. But if you use the book as a platform, for example, with me, it's essentially the manual that I'm going to use for the academy. And that's why I'm creating the academy, because that's scalable, right? You want scale to be able to make money. So I'm right now at the beginning of, the journey of really making money out of this. Yes, I have made a bit, but it's not something to talk about. The mining, when you make money, you really make a lot of money. And that's why it's quite a tough one. So profitability, yes, in the long term, in terms of the business model that I'm looking at, definitely. Because once you have sunk in the cost, you will get the profit. You've already put in the money for the consulting, for the academy. Same also with the mining. Once you get it done, then it's great. So you need to put in the money to be able to make the money. And then there is the advertising too that you have to put in. So yeah, but it's looking good as you move forward.
Okay. No, that's great. Mantombazane, do you want to add on that?
For me, in all honesty, where the cosmetics are concerned, there's still a lot of money that I need to pay myself back. because I invested so much money into actually starting the business. So I think until that is covered, I can't really say that I'm making a lot of profit. There is profit being made, but does it cover the amount of money that was invested into the business? That's going to take some time. And then when it comes to consulting services, for me, it's really hard to measure profit, because I think there's a fine line between doing too little or doing enough, and also the value that you put on yourself. So it almost becomes very tricky to sort of figure out if are you making profit? Is this what you're worth? And then you sort of look at industry standards, and then you wonder if maybe you're not too passionate about what you're doing, because you start to take on projects and you start to take on work because you're so interested in what's being done, but are you getting your money's worth from it? So it's a very tricky one for me, I'll be very honest.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, that's true. Profits is not a straightforward thing. It's so context dependent, because the margins depend on a lot of things, and also different industries, different margins, different time frames as to when you're going to start making profit and all that. But the most important thing, I think, for me is to be aware, to be able to do that analysis and be aware. How low can I go so that I don't destroy value for my business? What is my cutoff? What is a no-no? And you understand all those things. And do I have a time in my schedule when I can take pro bono work and those kind of things? So the awareness and knowing and be intentional about it, I think, becomes more important, so that it's not haphazard. And then that's when failure hits you by surprise, because you've spent so much time doing so low margin things that you've got these overheads to cover that you can now, put the two together. So the knowledge, the analysis, having your numbers clear, I think that becomes very, very important to make sure you take care of that. I see here Mukombwe said, good day, does it mean one shouldn't fix the desk for 200 Rand just because they would usually charge 2,000 an hour for their services? How will we diversify if we restrict ourselves to 2,000 plus jobs? I think Mukombo, you didn't get the context that I was using the analogy. It's not that you don't do anything lower than that. If you've got a business, you've got different services and products, obviously you'll have different margins and different rates for different things. But we were talking from the context of getting burned out and taking too many things and delegation, that there are certain things you can delegate to give yourself the space to be able to do other things. It's not that you can't do it. That's a decision that is a personal or a business decision that you as an entrepreneur, you decide whether you take 200 or you take 100. But we're talking from the context of giving yourself some free time so that you can rest and recharge. And if you can delegate some of the things or outsource some of the things. So that was the context there, not that you can't take 200 Rand and you restrict yourself to 2,000 Rand an hour. There's another question from Abiola saying, how do we develop the idea and actually protect it from being taken from you whilst you're still trying to develop it into a product? Yeah, I get a lot of this question also in entrepreneurship classes. Who wants to take that? So it's always a worry of somebody stealing your idea. So how do you make sure you protect it? Okay, I see we've lost Mantombazane. I think maybe she will talk to that. Who's developing a product? Or we all on services? Dr. Patience?
Well,
yeah,
there are always people developing products. There's competition, and that's why you have to continuously monitor competition as part of your strategy, because you may think that you are the only one who has that idea, and yet there's somebody else who is also thinking about that. So if you want to share your idea, you really need to sign, obviously, a non-disclosure, something that's going to be enforceable, because you can't share your idea with people without any legal document, especially if there is an IP to that idea. So that's number one. You're going to be meeting people and you want funding or something, make sure you sign an NDA, but it has to be enforceable, because some people, they just sign some of the NDAs that are not even enforceable. I remember one deal that I was going to do, there was a potential to be circumvented. And when I checked with my lawyer and said, Patience, you know what, you were going to be circumvented because of this part. And I hadn't realized that. So always checking with your lawyers or just jumping and talking to other people, very critical. But having said that, if you haven't shared it with anyone, there are always people developing. So don't think people have stolen your idea. People are always developing ideas. They are always, but it doesn't stop you also from pursuing. Think abundance, because if it is a good idea and there are more people who are actually thinking of doing it, hey, maybe it means that there is a gap in the market. It means actually there's a big problem to be solved. So I'm not worried about other people doing what I'm planning to do. I think we just need to look at how differentiated are you going to be, but also you've got to know who your client is and how you're going to serve them differently from the competition.
Yes, Melina, you wanted to say something there?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with Patience in the sense that if someone once said to me, if you have an idea, another 5 people have had the same idea. And what is really the issue is that you actually need to just go out there and make it happen. If you are worried about someone stealing your idea or going to a person who's in an industry and you're worried that they would steal it, then find someone like that in a completely different industry. If you know what I mean. So you can still take the idea and the concept that you have developed, but take it to someone who has the same level of expertise that you're looking for, but in a different industry. And maybe they can then offer you the advice that you are seeking, or the mentorship or something like that. Or yeah, I would suggest you still need to talk. Ideas are great inside your head, but then once you start speaking them out or trying to explain them to other people, if someone doesn't understand what you're talking about, or then it loses it, and you kind of start to see the holes and the gaps. And sometimes someone who isn't in that industry is also very good at seeing the holes and the gaps, because they're like, oh, well, what about that? And they start poking holes in your idea. So I think it is really, really important to speak to people and to get advice. And, in order for someone to steal your idea, they've actually got to go out there and do what you were going to do. So I think that element of bringing your own personal touch to it and doing it in your own way, no one else can do. So yeah, I think go for it. Okay.
Thanks for that. Yeah, so the idea issues is an issue that is it always comes out. And I always say it's also important to make the assessment whether the idea that you have, is it really worth protecting it? Because you can think that's my idea, I'm the only one who thought of it, somebody else, as you say, have thought of it. And then when you see that person implementing, you think they stole yours. So there are a lot of analysis you need to do around that to say, is the idea worth protecting it? And then you can register and protect it, but there's cost to that. So you have to be sure it's worth doing that. But the other important thing that Mantombazane mentioned earlier is that when you're an entrepreneur, you have to move fast, because you might lose opportunities. So you might have this great idea, you're too slow, you're sharing it with people, but we are too slow implementing. The truth of the matter is that someone can implement it. And there's another process now to go to court and fight that this is my idea versus it was this person's idea. And that's the truth, is some of the things that you will have to deal with. So I think taking all the advices from the panelists, make a decision, do it fast. When you share it, try to protect yourself as much as possible, get things written down. If it's really that of a good idea, worth spending money protecting it, then protect it and go register it and protect it. But you need to be sure so that you don't register something and you see that it's been done already and you have spent the money because you don't register it just for free. So that is because I see why I'm emphasizing that, because I see there's a follow-up question on that says ideas are stolen, get stolen every day. When I did my research, when I did my research on data for women in forestry, I requested information verbally, and a year later, the same people who told me I think she didn't finish the message, but I guess those people implemented the idea. So protect it, get things written down, register it, get a patent for it, and if it's worth doing that, but act fast as an entrepreneur. Sometimes what you think is the best idea that only you have thought about, somebody else has as well. Yeah, so Abiola as well is saying the same thing, write things down. Make sure that you write things down. And okay, I guess we're getting to the end when I start seeing thanks a lot, ladies, that tells us we are getting close to the time. Thanks, me, Dr. Jabu. I took too long because of fear to start. The fear to start, yeah. So so Kinilo is responding to that issue that go when you've got an idea, make the decision, go fast. And she said she took long because of the fear to start. Anyone wants to maybe share something about the fear? How do you deal with that fear? You've got this idea, but you're scared to start. I don't want to pick, I want a volunteer. Yes, Melina.
Okay, I'll go. I think I must say, I think Patience and Mantombazane will be much better at answering this, but I in my podcast, which focused on kind of entrepreneurs and side hustles, I interviewed a lot of people around this, and most of the successful entrepreneurs seem to say that they kind of just went out and did it. And you kind of just almost have to bury the fear, which is probably not a good psychological advice, but it is around just kind of like swallowing it down and doing it. And I think that is a lot of what people do. If you maybe shoot from the hip, I think, the important thing, as we've discussed before, is not to get analysis paralysis, and that over trying to make too much perfect and right and correct, and have we looked at it and put it this way and that way and all that kind of stuff, because that is fear talking, that analysis paralysis. So for those of us that are more analytical, then that is a way to deal with our fear, is to constantly nitpick at whatever we are creating. So it's, so sometimes it works to maybe have someone on your team, whether it's a mentor who goes, it's perfect, go, get it out the door now, or a partner who is, just encouraging and supportive, or maybe a market group, test it out with a group of supportive other women who have got your back and will be like, yes, it's ready, go, get it out there, so there are ways to kind of jolt your fear and jump over that hurdle. But in writing, there's a great book called The War of Art. So it's a play on the art of war. So it's The War of Art. And it's a fantastic little book. And he calls that fear resistance. And you see the resistance crop up in one's life in many different forms. And it is that little voice that says, no, it's not quite right. Or really, do you really know what you're doing? No, you don't know what you're doing. And so the psychology that comes from those little voices, sometimes they're often other people's voices sitting inside this. I kind of think of it as like this auditorium in your head, all these little voices kind of sitting and like, pushing you down. So I think, you need to dig deep with fear, find people who are supportive and who have got your back, but then also, maybe take your own demons on and go, right, inside your head, have this kind of, this is what I was talking about, the insanity part, where you have to have that conversation inside your head that you go, enough, you will stop talking to me now. I'm going to do this. And it's just going to happen, come hell or high water. And that's, yeah. So that's how I deal with fear. A lot of talking to myself, hence the insanity. I will be quiet now.
Thank you for that, Melina. I think also just because we've hit past now, I just want to read this last one. It's from Marcelo. She said, help, I'm doing few things, hustling, but I'm not really sure if I'm making profit. I see money coming in, but I'm not sure if it's really profit or it's just to put food on my children's table. I'm not sure where I go wrong. I hope I make sense. Yes, you make sense. I think most of the time as entrepreneurs, we run our businesses top of our heads. You write down. You have, and this is one of the things as well that probably they tell us when we study business courses, but we don't hear it, that have a specific account for your business, don't mix things, so that you see your sales, you see what's coming in, you see what's going out, you see what are your margins, you see what's worth paying you, and what is it that you are left with after paying your overheads, and that becomes your profits. But you will never know if you're just doing it in your head, the money comes in, you pay for the kids' school fees, you do that. You'll never know whether you are making profit, you are doing something wrong. So just write it down, put it properly, have a separate account. Now the banks is nice. They also give you all these tools that you can just download and see what's happening in your account. That will be my high level quick advice, but you need to dig deeper than that. In our closing, it's past now, 1 minute over. We'll start with you, Melina. One tip or one advice to women entrepreneurs up there in your closing.
Just one, okay. Never lose faith in yourself. I think, yeah, just keep believing, hold on to whatever your faith is that keeps you going. I think, yeah, just trust yourself, trust your gut, yeah, that would be my one tip. Done.
You had more. Okay,
I've got 1,000.
Mantombazane, to you, over to you.
I think what I would say is develop a plan that you can use as a guide or as a roadmap for your business and stick to it. It can be hard, but you need to stick to that initial plan. And it will also help you break free from the limits of traditional thinking, help you get rid of those limiting thoughts as well. So just always try and remind yourself of the things that are going well, all the things that you are doing right, and just try and always have complete confidence in yourself and complete belief in what you're doing. Believe in your business, believe in your idea, because that is what is going to keep you going when the going gets tough.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Patience?
I would say, firstly, get a coach. Learn from the best. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Model someone who is in that area. It's much easier. Thirdly, join a community of like-minded people. It's lonely being an entrepreneur. So get a coach, join a community, and also you've got to believe in yourself. Face fear. Fear is false evidence appearing real. Face it, but believe in yourself and just do it.
Thank you for that. There was a question that I skipped intentionally to put it last. If an entrepreneur would like one of the panelists to be their coach in entrepreneurship, how does one get go about it? And what is the cost for that per hour? So I think what we will do, we'll ask Aru if then they can share our details, which our social media accounts, what do they call them? Handles are already out there. You can tell which generation I come from. They are already out there, so you can find us there, and then you'll find our details there, and then you can try to contact us. But also you can talk to marketing, they'll share our details there. And then whoever that you have identified that you want to be a coach, then you can reach out to them and then have the conversation and the discussion about the rates and all that. And thank you very much. It was lovely having you ladies. Very insightful, very inspiring. I see some of our attendees, one of them is saying, I feel inspired, I'm going to go back and start again and have the confidence that I'm going to make it. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and thank you to our attendees for engaging. You were a wonderful audience, for listening, sending the questions, and I hope this conversation has revived something in you. You know, when a Black person does this, the English word is gone. It has revived something in you, and you can get started and then believe in yourself, get moving, take the advice that you got here and then move with it. Enjoy your evening. It was lovely having you. And that's Dr. J. Thank you. Goodbye.